Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of Dropkick Podcast. I'm here joined with none other than TJ Wilson, aka Tyson Kidd. Thank you for doing this, man. I really appreciate it. I know it's a long time coming. We've done so many of these in person now, so it's finally, good to meet you.
Yeah, man.
And make it happen.
It's great to meet you in person. I know I've done a couple interviews with you, I keep up with each other's stuff, so it's cool to meet in person. I have a lot of these kind of relationships where like they go on for a couple of years, and then I meet the person, and it's usually, I say usually, I mean it's actually always a very good experience.
Yeah, for sure. But I wanted to ask, are you stoked for WrestleMania this year? Like, the card's looking amazing from what I consider. I know.
Yeah. I mean, man, every year it's a new challenge, and it's a new. It's always exciting because it's a different. Like this will be my first WrestleMania in Dallas. I wasn't here last time. I've never been to Jerry's World, as Skip Bayless calls it. Never been there, so I'm excited. And Cena, I remember one time Cena, like a decade ago, saying that WrestleMania was going to become a 2-day event. Yeah, and I remember like 2012 he first said that. 2011, 2012, like literally on a live event. I can remember it like pretty clearly. And I just remember thinking, no way. That was my initial thought. And then I thought, that could happen. And then WrestleMania. So I'm really bad with the numbers once we're in the 30s. I know by the destination.
Yeah.
So WrestleMania, I know it's 35, but I know because it's Ronda, Charlotte, and Becky. That match started. It was like 12:02.
Mm-hmm.
Like the show started at like the main show started at 7. The pre-show was like at 5 or
something.
And here we are at midnight. The main event started.
It's crazy, but it's honestly crazy because I think the last time looking back on it, WrestleMania 32, it was right here in Dallas, Texas, and we had Triple H and Roman Reigns main event, but I consider this match to be the best match on the card. It was Sasha, Becky, and Charlotte. And what a match.
Yeah.
I think they stole the show, man. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I was watching from home. That's when that was less than a year after my neck injury, so I took about 2 years to recover from that. I remember being really impressed with that match. I knew the creativity those women would have, but it was cool to see them even outdo what I kind of thought they were going to do and see it kind of come to life. Like I'd been around them at that point. I was around them a bunch during their NXT, like their come up. And that's when I was doing my NXT stuff. So it was so cool to see, I guess, the transition and the progression and the growth from NXT to WrestleMania in Dallas, man.
No, for sure. It's crazy because,
from Full Sail, which is like 400 people.
Yeah. No, it's honestly crazy because I think Ronda coming back this year facing Charlotte in one of the biggest matches of WrestleMania, and Ronda being a big household name and Charlotte, really holding it down for the women's division. What are your thoughts on Ronda coming back? Because I know she came out the Rumble and no one expected that. I didn't expect that. But what are your thoughts on that?
It's cool. It's cool for like to see like almost part 2 of Ronda's WWE career. Like we saw that first run for WrestleMania 34 to 35, and it was awesome. She had a hell of a run, and now in the 3 years she's been gone, the game's changed quite a bit. She definitely lit a spark and definitely helped elevate like the women's division as a whole. That first run, big time. I don't know all the inner workings as much as people maybe think I do. I don't know if the women would have main evented that first time without Ronda being involved. I don't know. But then I do know that, like, for example, last year, Bianca and Sasha main evented in a singles match. Oh, sure. So I know, like she really helped elevate things, I think, to a different... And then our girls, our women, have taken that ball and scored like 300 touchdowns with it. Like they just been running for miles with the ball, and so it's cool to see. It's cool to see Ronda come back, and now almost like kind of. Well, I haven't been around her yet, actually, to be honest, since she's been back. I had some time off, so I'm back now. So I haven't seen Ronda yet, but I know from watching it feels like she's almost kind of looking around and kind of like assessing everything. And man, I don't know if she's like I don't know because I haven't spoken with her. I don't know how much she watched when she was gone. I assume that she watched obviously enough, and just I'm sure she's proud of how much it's changed, and like it's really you can't have an off day in the women's division in WWE.
You really can't, because I believe they're truly one of the best wrestlers on the planet. Going day in, day out. On the WWE schedule too, because you're on the road 365 days a year, right?
It's crazy. And I watch them on the live events, like Sasha and Charlotte having these matches. Or I just got a match sent to me. I haven't watched it yet. It was from last week. It was Shayna and Natty versus Sasha and Naomi, and I heard it was awesome. So I had them send it to me from Charlottetown or Charlottesville or something. Like, people don't realize, man, like, they don't always understand the scope of our schedule and what we do, and that it is 4 or 5, sometimes not always, but like 6, 7 days a week. It's crazy. And people only see the what's on TV, and so they think, oh, you work once a week, but it's like, no, it's actually quite a bit more than that. And the travel, like last week, I wasn't on the shows. I just went to Raw last week in Pittsburgh, which was snowing and was freezing. I've been in Florida for 3 months, man. You put me in the cold, but anyway,
you should come to Canada and see how that is.
I haven't been to Canada since before the pandemic, and I was talking with some friends. I'll probably go up to Calgary this summer because it's summertime. Calgary in the summer is
Calgary's
beautiful.
Great.
The winter,
Don't know about that.
But yeah, man. So it just been like last week. Natty had something. It was like 3-4 hour drives every night. So people just don't. And that's fine. But people just don't see that side of what we do. And that's the part's tough. That part's really tough.
For sure. Because I think it was Dusty Rhodes. He said it best. Where I think he said it to Cody, or it was CM Punk at WrestleMania 28, where WrestleMania is happening, but as soon as you take that gear off, the show's over, and that's it. But it's just crazy because I feel like, people don't see that side of professional wrestlers, and it's insane.
And like the crazy thing for like our world, like, so use this comparison all the time with other sports. I'm a big NBA fan or a big football fan, of course. I had a friend send me a graphic saying that as of 3 days ago, the Calgary Flames have the best chance of winning the Stanley Cup. I'll believe it when I see it. The last one happened when I was 8. The only one happened when I was 8 years old, about to turn 9. So I wasn't quite. I was old enough to a little bit understand, but not old enough to really enjoy it. But like, for example, when the Stanley Cup's over, when the Super Bowl's over, the next day they're not playing a regular season game. We are. You guys are. WrestleMania happens on so now it's 2 days, Saturday, Sunday. But then what happens on Monday? We have Monday Night
Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and then house shows.
And then normally we would do Raw at that before, like when I'm in talent. Then we do SmackDown on the Tuesday. We'd go home Wednesday. I'd usually, there's not live events that weekend. That weekend would be off, and you're like, almost like you feel a little bit spoiled until you fly out Sunday. You do Raw Monday, you do SmackDown Tuesday, and then Wednesday you fly to Europe for 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, that schedule's
so like
insane.
It's Super Bowl. Imagine doing the Super Bowl, and then you have a regular season game the next day, and then you're going to Europe for 2 weeks, the week after that.
No, I think that's the thing where people don't realize. Like, it's that mental toll that takes in. I wanted to ask you, like, being on the WWE schedule, like, how do you personally stay motivated, being away from home? Well, I guess you're not really away from home considering you're a producer. Yeah. But when you were wrestling, like, how did you stay mentally, like, motivated?
I just always, the times, I stayed motivated for whatever reason. Like, for the most part, I would just generally stay motivated because I knew, like, this is what I do. Well, the times when I would get frustrated and be like, I don't really want to be on the road anymore, then I would, and it's tricky, but you try to, like, find that 12-year-old version of me that was like, you would have done anything to be on the road in the Hulk Hogan 500 days a year.
No, it's crazy. I think people do this because they love this. It's...
You can see it. You can see who loves this. I can watch TV for 2 seconds and I can tell you who loves this. I can watch NBA. I can tell you who loves it. Your eyes don't lie. It's very easy to tell who loves this, who doesn't love it. I could see in 2 seconds. I don't have to work with you. You can be in a different company than me. You can be in the same company, but we haven't met yet. I know if you love this or not. But there's also this. You may not have fallen in love with it yet. It can happen. It can still happen. Like, for example, like, people ask me about right now, like, recruiting athletes, focusing on athletes. You're going to find people that aren't going to love it at first, and then they might never love it. Then you're going to find people that don't love it, And then one day, they get bitten by this damn wrestling thing.
No, I feel like once you're so hooked onto it, it's just one of those things where you just can't let go of it. And I know saying Bryan Danielson, he once said that, like, in order to love the sport, you must have to have the idea of making sure that you're okay with letting it go, because if sometimes things don't work out in your way, it's okay, because things like that can occur. And with Bryan, his career, ended and everything, but he had that amazing comeback.
Yep. It's so true, and he's right. And like it's like most things. Obviously, it's much easier said than done, and it's especially easy to kind of maybe talk about it or say it until you have to actually experience it, and you're like, oh, this is the advice I was giving. Oh no, now I gotta kind of turn it off and let it go. And it's obviously, if you love this, it's much harder. It's much easier said than done. It's much harder to actually do. But in order to almost, I guess, save yourself and save your sanity, you have to condition yourself to know that I have this saying where there's 3 things we can control. I can control 3 things as a talent. I can control my gear, what kind of gear, how I can control having nice gear and having fresh gear. I can control my attitude, which that one's a little bit harder, because if you feel you're not being utilized properly, it will start to affect your attitude. It's much harder to not let it affect your attitude. And you can the other thing I'm in control of is how do I look? How does my physique? How does my body look? I can control those 3 things. Where I'm at on the show, I can help improve in areas and help get me further along. But if the right person doesn't feel that way, then it might not happen. And so that's where you can control those 3 things, and you have to kind of almost succumb to almost the destiny of what is the rest is going to happen.
No, it's really crazy because being a pro wrestler, it's a long journey. You know what I mean? This
is a marathon. This is not a sprint. I'm telling you.
Absolutely. But I think you train a lot of people in the dungeon. You have that little ring set up. So I wanted to ask you, Mitchell, who recently got signed with WWE, and I know you worked closely with them.
Yeah.
So what is it?
So it's very funny. I got a text from Dr. Tom, who's somebody who I have utmost respect for. He Dr. Tom, Steve Kern, Kidman, Norman Smiley, Dusty, obviously. Those were the main coaches when I was in FCW. I was actually there before Norman and Kidman, actually, and Dusty. But anyway, I have to mention those guys' names because they were so great to me in FCW, and they made my 2 years in FCW. While I was in FCW, I enjoyed my time there. I wasn't the whole time I was there. I wasn't I got to get to the main roster. I knew I believed. Sorry, I didn't know. I believed that I would go to the main roster and I'll be okay. But I also didn't want to overlook this time in FCW, and I had a very fun time. All that to say, I had a great relationship with Dr. Tom. He really looked out for me a lot in FCW and further. When I was on the main roster, I would come to a lot of FCW shows, and he would pull me aside and talk to me and just kind of see where I was at mentally and things like that. So he texted me one day and said, "Hey, I got this kid that I trained. I think I've kind of done as much as he's done as much as he can do here. He's willing to relocate. Would you take a look at him, and if he fits your vibe, will you kind of take him in?" And it's funny, his name's Mitch. I always just called him Jake. He wrestled as Jake Tucker until he got signed, so I just always have called him Jake. It's I call everyone their wrestling name.
Gimmick name.
Yeah, everybody, man, Dolph, everybody. But so I was yeah, of course he can. On Dr. Tom's recommendation, of course he can come at least one time. He came in, and right away I knew, oh, this guy vibe right away. But also I knew he came in and he was in very good shape, and he was very good athlete and very driven. I knew he was also going to rub off and have an effect on everyone else there. When they see the guys that I train, the guys and girls that I train and stuff, when they see Natty and I, like they like, especially if they see me, they see the finished product. I don't wrestle anymore, and I wrestled for 20 years, but they don't see the journey. Yeah. Like I have a friend who's like, oh look, he's like, you're jacked, blah blah blah. I was like, yeah, but I wasn't born like this. When I was 18 years old, when I was 17 years old, I was 5'4" and 140 pounds. I was 100 pounds when I was 17. When I turned 18, I finally had a growth spurt, but I was like 5'6", 140 pounds. Man, I wasn't big. So, like, I'm proof that you can achieve this. And like I was saying, so people kind of see the finished product with me, the guys that I train. So it's kind of hard to, like, when I'm telling them stories, they obviously know I'm not lying to them, but they're probably like, well, it all worked out for him. So to see Mitch and to see, like, that how hard he was working and, like, what he already, like, he came in, like, pretty good physique, great attitude. That's never changed. Neither of those. He's been awesome, man. But it was cool to see him now touching his dream, but also how much he's sparked and inspired his peers that he was training with. It is unbelievable. It's so cool. I see their fire in their eyes, man.
No, for sure. I love how you guys just have this camaraderie, at the dungeon, and I'm just like, one day, like, I'd love to be there, train with you guys. Like, it's a great environment, and I know, I think it was back in 2020, I actually interviewed you. I feel like I've interviewed you so many times now. I actually have a friend, the Wrestling Classic, of course. He was like, great guy. He was like, I feel like TJ is just like the guy you just do interviews with. You guys should start a podcast. I'm like, hey, Justin, if you're watching this.
People hear all my dumb thoughts.
No, but it's really crazy to see, his journey. And I think he's going to do great things.
I think he's going to do well. Man, he's very coachable and a great attitude. I can't see, like, he's one of those guys, you meet him, like, he can be a little, like, I mean this in a nice way. He can be a little goofy, a little, like, joking, but I like that. I like the mood being a little bit light. And then, but if it's time to be serious, he's serious. And if it's time to learn, he's a great student, and he's a great like, he would come in all, like, if ever we had, like, extra training, or like a couple times, like, Bray came in, like, my guys drop everything and just like, I got called one night, it was like 11 p.m. I was like, hey, I'm gonna send Bray to train tomorrow at 9 a.m. I'm like, okay, but, like, my guys, like, have jobs and stuff, so I was like, text them, like, guys, you don't have to come, blah blah blah. I got to train at 9 a.m. with Jamie Noble, and then my greenest guy at the time was like, hey, TJ, I can come. I know I don't really know a whole lot, and I said, dude, thank you very much. And now that kid is having his first match on Friday. I'm gonna miss it, Khalil, but I'm very excited, man. They're gonna have a hell of a match. He's wrestling another dungeon guy, Jake Sterling. Yeah, but I'm so proud of them, man. I'm so proud of them. Like, I'm like this, and I have the same thing with, like, the women's division, where I'm like this. I'm not quite a dad, but maybe like a. I
feel maybe you're like, getting there.
Maybe like a cousin. Maybe like a little bit, couple years older cousin. just like my cousin introduced wrestling to me. He introduced me to wrestling. He's a few years older than me, so I, like, looked up to him. He's older. So I always looked up to him. So maybe that's the same kind of role I am for now. Give me a couple more years, then I'll be dad.
Mm-hmm. We're getting there. But I wanted to ask, like, are there any, a couple of matches that you recommend talent to watch it and, like, study from?
I mean, so everybody's style is going to be a little different, and you want to, of course, there's going to be matches like, for example, I'm going to sound like a big Bret Hart Rolodex or encyclopedia here, but, Bret and Mr. Perfect.
I love Bret.
Bret and Davey. Bret and Steve Austin. I get in debates with some of my friends a lot, like the Survivor Series match better. I mean, it's good problems to have. That's fine if you like the Survivor Series match better. I like the WrestleMania 13 match better. I think the WrestleMania 13 match, honestly, I think it's the perfect match. But, like, for example, like, the kid I trained, Khalil, he's having his first match Friday. He can't go in there and have this. He can't, like, try to emulate that Bret and Steve Austin match, because that was a match that had, like, a lot of history to it, and so you can watch it and understand the ideologies and the ideas behind it, but you can't take all of that into your first ever match. You know what I mean? But honestly, I think you can't go wrong. The first guy that I really, really trained, like, after my Japanese trainer, Chucky, Michael Richard Blaze in Edmonton. He's from Calgary. Kid's amazing. He helped me, like, when I was a talent in WWE, I would, like, talk to him a whole bunch about my matches, and he'd give me great ideas. But he's someone who really absorbed, like, a lot of the stuff I taught him at a young age, and then he amplified it himself. But what I really learned from him, so me, I watch matches that, for example, like you just asked me what matches I recommend. I watch matches that I really like. He is a little different. He watches everything. Mm-hmm. He watches everything, whether he likes it or doesn't like it. He watches everything and then goes, okay, I didn't like 98% of this match, but that 2% worked. I can apply that to so that's what he does. And I think that's the best way to go. If you have that kind of time or you have that kind of devotion and love for this, and you can just watch wrestling all day long, good for you. Good for you.
That's great.
MRB.
No, I think, watching everything, taking everything from it is such a good way to put things into perspective. But also, speaking of Bret Hart, there are rumors, I say rumors because it's the internet, but Bret Hart possibly entering the wrestling scene again, to possibly manage FTR. FTR is great. I love Dax and Hart, and both great guys.
Got a connection after that Hall of Fame a couple years ago.
Ooh, if you know what I'm talking about. But what are your thoughts on Bret Hart entering the wrestling scene again?
I mean, yeah, if that's what ends up happening for him, that'd be awesome. I honestly, like, I could swear on a stack of Bibles as I sit here right now. I haven't talked to him about it. I don't know if he has any plans one way or the other. But when I see things like, for example, like an Owen Hart tournament, I'm sure Bret would want to have some kind of part of that if possible. So if that's the case and something like that ends up happening, that's cool. I mean, Bret literally at any stage, but really at this stage, he can do whatever he wants, and I'm gonna say cool.
Bret Hart being the greatest of all time, I think you can learn so much from him, and I think, like, he's worked so many different styles of matches where you can take a little bit, but
man, like, it's crazy. Like, great brawler like that WrestleMania 13 match is like, it's not so scientific. There's scientific parts, there's technical parts of the match, a lot of brawling, but really the storytelling is Bret's. You won't get an argument from me on that. He it's kind of funny. It's almost like his matches are better now, like, with time, than they almost were in the moment. Like, or people maybe just saw wrestling differently and weren't paying attention to the little details Bret was putting out there, and they're maybe looking at the bigger picture, not like kind of zooming in. And I think now the more common fan, I think, really dials in and zooms in on what's happening in the ring, and that's where Bret's work holds up better than 99% of guys, but that's where it might even be better than it was when it actually went down. Like, more people talk about WrestleMania 10, Bret versus Owen now, I feel like, than when it happened. That's what I feel like, and understandably so. This is a hell of a match, man. I could watch a match every day.
I think I watched it too many times.
The overhead camera angles. I know where when the camera switches the overhead angle in that match. I watched that match so
it's
many
like the
times.
younger sibling and the oldest, and then Owen. I think Owen, like, slapped it, and Bret's like, "No, do it."
Yeah. Owen's got his arm and he puts his foot on his face, and Bret pushes it off and does it.
Don't do it.
It's those little things, man. Like, that's what makes, like, a brothers match different than me and you having a match, right? You know what I mean? Like, that one little thing where he pushes his foot off his face and points up as the older brother, like, right? You can not understand the story, but if someone says, "Oh, these are brothers," you go, "Oh, that's the older brother admonishing the younger brother for being bad." That's cool, man.
That's crazy.
Gives me goosebumps. I don't like. I get into storytelling. It gets crazy.
It gets insane. But no, speaking of, the Hart family and everything, do you have any dungeon stories to share? Because I know, you grew up in the dungeon with Harry, wrestling. There's so many crazy stories, but, like, what are some stories that you really fondly carry?
Man, so I watch, like, anyone who's watched, like, the Owen Hart versus Ken Shamrock dungeon match. That was really the dungeon. That was really for real. And There's a part where Owen put Shamrock's head through the drywall on the roof. But if you looked, if you like when you see that shot, there's a lot of holes, and that was like those are mostly feet. But like sometimes people would they would hit like their head on the pipes. If you remember, like at one point, Shamrock grabs the pipes. Yep. So those pipes, they hang low, and like I'm not that tall, and like they would go to like my head would touch them. So if I was jumping, I watched so many guys like smack their heads on the pipes. There's no ropes in the dungeon. One side's an open wall, so you simulate like it's just open, so you simulate you simulate all running ropes there because there's no ropes, but like two sides of the wall, like the other side of the wall is hollow, but one of the sides has like brick directly behind it, so you'd see people kind of hit the wall and get a little like not spring, but almost a little bounce off of it until they hit the wrong side that had the brick. I remember seeing these people will all remain nameless, but I remember seeing somebody hit and then hit that hard side, and like when they like hit their back against that hard side, they just like crumbled down like a building being imploded, like
straight down. Yeah.
Trying to think, man. I've told this story a few times. Yeah, you know, like I just loved wrestling, and I didn't realize like how crazy it might look to somebody who hasn't seen this side of it. Like when you turn on Raw or SmackDown and you're seeing like this finished product, like I was kind of saying earlier, and you're like, oh, the set's awesome. That's the glam. That's like the little bit of the glamorous side. Wrestling isn't all that, but a lot of it's traveling. You don't see the airports and delayed flights and lost luggage. But so this guy came from Ireland, and we practiced on Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. This guy flew in Wednesday afternoon. He got picked up. He got brought straight to Stu's. I think he stayed at Stu's that night, and he came to practice, and he didn't wrestle that day. He just watched, and I think he watched. And I think in that moment he was like, "Oh my God, this is way more real than I thought." Like there's, you know, they hit way harder than like I thought. It's all not real, and dude, he got on the mat and he kind of just addressed the room, said his name, like Bruce Hart had him come up and say his name and where he's from and blah 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 and how long he been a wrestling fan and all this stuff. 9 a.m. the next morning, he's on a plane back to Ireland. I never saw him ever again. That's
insane. No, I
and one other guy, like literally like a couple months later, a guy from England, like almost identical. And I was like, I remember thinking like, what's going on with these European guys? At this point, I'm getting pretty close with Davey. I was like, I know he's pretty tough. He stuck it out. But I mean, you know, people at that point, this is like 99, 98, 99. So they probably have seen like Pro Wrestling Secrets Revealed. And they're like, oh, it's easy. It's not real. They're not really hitting. They don't even touch each other. Anyone can do it. So you come and actually see it, and you're like,
you do it, yeah.
Oh, but it's crazy. This guy didn't even take a bump. Like I have a very good friend of mine. He's done some MMA in Canada. Very good friend of mine. Big wrestling fan. Like not that he understood it, but he did have a great grasp of wrestling before he ever showed up in the dungeon. And he lived with his brother up the hill from Stu's. And his first day of practice, he's doing a couple things, but I think he took a couple snapmares. And then when he got home, his brother wasn't there yet. His brother comes home and is excited to ask him, like, you know, what moonsaults, what crazy things did he do at wrestling that day? And he's like, he's looking for his friend. Again, will remain nameless, even though he would, Corey. He'd be happy I'm shouting him out. Corey Chambers. Dude, and he tells people this story, so it's not like I'm outing him. He's like, Corey, where are you? And then he's like, I'm in the bathtub. And he comes in and he's like talking to him, and he's like just like sitting in the tub soaking, and he's like, damn dude, what happened? He's like, I took like 2 snapmares. Oh, he's like, what? Yeah. He's like, dude, stuff hurts way more than we thought.
It's crazy. It's insane. No, because I remember I had my first wrestling tryout, and I hit you up being like, I'm super nervous. You know, my nerves are just like, you know, going off the walls.
Course, it's totally natural.
But I think once I started taking bumps, I'm like, man, this is way more harder than it looks.
And here's the thing, the bumps always hurt so much more at first than later on. Your body gets used to it, but those first ones, man, they'll wake you up, and they might even send you away.
Clearly, it's crazy. But I wanted to ask, switching gears a little bit, thoughts on what are your thoughts on Sasha and Naomi, teaming up at this year's WrestleMania? Because I think the last time they teamed up was 2015 in that Team Bad stable with Tamina. So I think it's cool to see them come back. So what are your thoughts on that?
That's really cool, man. It's really cool to see. Like, that was Sasha's introduction to the main roster, and then to see where both have gone in 7 years. Like, Naomi's one of those talents, man. You could put her, like, say like she's not being used or utilized a whole bunch, but you can, like, all of a sudden just put her right on the show for the women's championship, and it makes sense, and the people love it. Like, Naomi just has that, and she's always had that. She has that in person too. And Sasha, I think, is very special, and I think a lot of the women are. But I think we vibe very well together. We work very well together. I mean, but I'm not blowing my own horn. It's actually I'm blowing their horns. Like, I kind of have, like, I have a version of that relationship with almost all the women on the roster. But yeah, with Sasha, it's very special because I saw her come up in NXT, and I've seen her, like, I've seen all this growth in her as a performer. And so to see, like, it's very cool for me that, like, she and Naomi are a team, because the whole Team Bad stuff, that was right after my neck injury, so I'm not around for any of it. I didn't get to I saw it on TV, but I didn't get to be around them and see them. And so it's really cool to kind of come full circle. And then, like, for me, it's really cool. It's almost missing a couple players out of that 4-way match, but it's almost like my dream team of, like, all the girls that were, like, it's like Rhea and Liv, phenomenal,
fantastic. I love it.
Shayna and Natty, like, obviously. I think Shayna's very underrated. Natty, I mean, her resume speaks for itself, man. You got every accolade possible, most matches of any woman, most wins of any women, like, she just has everything. It was crazy, and I don't see her slowing down. That's what's wild. She's and then the truth is, and a lot of people maybe don't, but I initially trained her, so, like, I'm so proud of her. I'm wildly proud of her. And Carmella and Zelina, I'm a big fan of both of them. Carmella, as someone who's really understood my formula, like, almost from I texted her this at one point during the pandemic. I hadn't seen her for a little bit, and so I sent her a text, and I was like, hey, just so you know, like, I have never forgotten. She was the first girl that started, like, requesting me to work with her. I got, like, on Raw at one point, I kept working with Seth, and then on SmackDown I'd get paired, like, I would do random things, and one time it was like, I had the women's match, I had Carmella and somebody, and then Carmella started, like, she's like, I understood that she understood a lot of, like, all the X Factor stuff. She understands in a match, or a good portion of it. And she was the first one to start requesting me, and then, like, she requested me, and then one time in Tampa it was Becky versus Carmella, and I knew Becky since, like, 2005.
Oh, wow, you guys go way back then.
Yeah, and Becky's another very special, like, Bianca too. I'll send you a video I just got sent to Bianca. Like, I think I'm emotional. I don't know if I'm emotional now because I'm older or because of my injury or both, but then also being on a plane makes it worse. So my friend sent me something, and I had Wi-Fi on the plane, and I watched it. I got the mask on, and I'm, like, trying not to cry, and I'm, like, sniffling. I should have just told them I was crying rather than they think I have COVID, but whatever. Sniffling. But yeah, man, like, so then Carmella and Becky had a match, and then Becky was like, wait, where'd you come up with this stuff? And I was like, I don't know. But yeah, I've never forgotten that Carmella was the catalyst of, like, literally, like, and now I don't picture myself doing anything else but working with these women. So thanks, Carmella. But I really think highly of, like, so that 4-way match, like, it's almost a dream. It's almost it is a dream team. It's almost like if you could just squeeze, like, a 5th team of, like, and I mean, I love all the girls. Like, well, I have a great relationship with almost all of them. But if you were to squeeze 2 returning people, what about throw Bailey and Asuka in there, and then we'd have the dream team. Like, these are all my people.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I love the whole, like, you know, all the teams getting together, having this great match for the, you know, women's tag team championships. I think it's great. But, you know, switching gears a little bit, let's talk about NXT 2.0.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people have, you know, opinions on the revamp. Personally, I think it's great because I think it focuses on more of the character than the in-ring aspect of it. Because, you know, you see so many characters, like, developing, you know, Braun Breaker, and there's so many.
Just met him for the first time. And he said, hey, man, hey, TJ, I just want to say hi. Nice to meet you. And I was like, hey, man. We were both checking in. And I'd, like, it's just funny, man. Like, now I'm at this stage. Like, this is what I really thought it when I said it to him. I said, hey, man, my first, like, few tours in New Japan, I was on tour with your dad. Yeah. And he's like, oh, was he mean to you? And I was like, no, hell no. I said, dude, your dad was awesome. And I saw him in Atlanta, like, a couple years ago, and he remembered me. Like, I'm a big Steiners fan. I don't think I've ever actually met Scott. But, like, been on tour with Rick. I'm a 22-year-old kid. And, like, I know they're, like, I'm excited because I know I'm going to see Rick on this trip. And I'm so happy they're going to the Hall of Fame. But it's cool to me to see, like, NXT 2.0 and see, like, a Braun Breaker develop. Like, he wasn't a part of NXT. Yeah. And, like, this guy blew up out of nowhere, and he's talented, man.
He's great. Carmelo Hayes. There's so many people.
Yeah, there really is.
So many people.
Yep, I agree. And you see the women there, which, of course, is something I always focus on. You see them, and they're all working on their characters, and they're working on, like, improvements. Even today, I landed here. And again, I keep saying I'm not going to out people, and I out them. But I landed. I wanted to check out the gym that they got here. It's beautiful, and fill up my water. And then I look and I see Ivy Nile doing some wild training, like doing lunges with a heavy bag.
That's insane. That's insane.
I didn't want to say hi and interrupt her, but, like, I love seeing that. And you know, I like seeing the development of, and that's, like, I guess where people don't like the change is that now NXT feels like it's gone back to being developmental instead of being, and it still is its own brand, but more of, like, has more of a developmental feel than
for sure
than what it was a couple years ago, where it was like it was a super indie with WWE production. It was awesome.
No,
it was
sure.
awesome.
I mean, you were part of that, right?
Yeah, I remember I was doing some Access interviews with Cesaro, and this guy was like, hey, he's like, I know you don't get much credit, but I did an interview with him, and he's like, I want to say thank you. He's like, you're a big catalyst of what NXT is now. And I was like, I really appreciate that. I don't take any of the credit at all, but I do think we were setting up something cool. Like, I'm always going to be super proud of my 2 takeover matches, the one with Neville and then the 4-way. I'm always going to be proud of
Love that 4-way, man. You guys, like, I consider that one of the greatest matches of all time. I watched a lot of wrestling, but I always go back and watch that one because the 4 of you guys just blew it out of the water that night.
Yeah, and when you're in wrestling and you understand, like, the more people you add to a match, the more difficult it becomes. Like, if it's me and you one-on-one, it's 2 brains. We're 2 brains. So if we get on the same page, it's easy. Like, if you get me on your page, it's easy. It's gonna be easy. Yeah. But now there's 4 of us, and now you're thinking something, I'm thinking something, he's thinking. How do we get them all on the same page? It's very tricky, and so that's why sometimes you see those matches, and it's not. Sometimes you'll see it in singles matches too. Sometimes you'll see 2 that you would consider 2 great wrestlers not have a great match. It happens. It's unfortunate when it happens, but it happens, and it's just. I feel like we struck gold that day. It was lightning. We had lightning there, and that 4-way was so much fun. And, like, I feel like Breeze doesn't get enough credit for what a great character, and like, his timing on things was so perfect to me.
I think all 4 of you guys, you know, Sammy, Neville,
oh my God,
Breeze,
yeah.
like,
I
insane.
I love the dynamic, and any of the 4 of us could pair up and have a 2-segment match on the episode.
And you guys did, and you guys actually ran TV for, like, a good 6 weeks, and then, like, I think that's when Finn came in,
yep,
and then
dude,
Hideo came in,
yeah.
like, just that entire, like,
and, like,
I love it.
Finn's first day in NXT, He wrestles me 3 times. I wrestle 4 matches that
I
night.
think you told me the story. You were sick of listening to your own theme song. I remember this story actually. If you go back and listen to older videos.
Yeah. That was actually the time before. I did 3. I had my music played 7 times in one NXT taping, and I was like, that's enough, man. That's when the headphones debuted. But with Finn, I wrestled him 3 times that night. His first night here, and I remember being in the locker room after, just looking over at him. He was fine. He was totally fine, and I was like, hey man, welcome to WWE.
That's great. But I wanted to ask you, do you miss being being an in-ring competitor?
Yeah. There's a lot of things I do miss about it. But I got hurt at 34, right before I turned 35, and even then I knew at some stage this obviously comes to an end. Now, I think about this a lot. When I got hurt, like I was forced to retire. So the choice was taken out of my hands. And I think the way I'm wired, it might sound weird. I think I'm a little bit glad that because I'm okay and I recovered fairly well. I think I'm kind of like, I'm not glad, but I can accept the way it happened, because I feel like if that injury didn't happen, I might have just kept, I don't know, I might have just kept wrestling, past my prime, and I don't, at least this way, kind of, because it's hard. It's hard as an athlete, and it's hard as a wrestler, a superstar, whatever. It's hard to know when is it time to say, okay, this is your game. This isn't mine anymore. It's hard. So I was unfortunate, but now with hindsight, I can say I was a little fortunate that I didn't have to make that choice. It was made for me. And then now I wouldn't be so zen with it if I didn't have this role with being a producer and this special connection I have with the women. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't. I can honestly tell you easily, I wouldn't be sitting here so calmly saying to you, yeah, I'm okay with my in-ring career being over. The truth is, I wrestled 0, and I'm okay with it. I wrestled 0 WrestleMania main events, and as a producer, I've done 2. Mm-hmm. The 2 women's matches, I've done both. So I'm very, you can never take that away from me. I'm very proud of it.
I can definitely see how proud of you are. Right? I think there was a picture of her where Sasha comes through the curtain and you're just hugging her. And,
yeah, one day when that video gets released, one day when, on her documentary, if they show it, and when they release that video, I mean, it was I'd say it was a very special moment, but it felt like it went on for 5 minutes. But it was amazing. It was amazing, man. I was the first person she saw when she came back, and I just I wanted to tell her so badly what an amazing job she did, and then she just almost collapsed, and I could see she let everything she had, she left it out there, and that's all you can ask for, man. And I think that night also Sasha really elevated Bianca, obviously, and Bianca held her own, but I think it also showed Bianca a whole different level that she can, and you've seen that growth in Bianca since. That match is amazing, and then you've seen the growth that she's had since as an overall performer in it. I remember, if you told me at WrestleMania, hey, Bianca's peaked, I'd be like, okay, not a bad place to peak, the main event of WrestleMania. If you peak there, you got a lot of space before you really come down. Yeah. But she didn't peak there. That's what's scary. Mm-hmm. That's what's really scary.
She's getting better for her.
That's what's scary about all these women, man. It really, they intimidate me, because I say this to Natty, she always says no, but eventually one time I'm not going to have the right ideas for them, because they're just evolving so fast. Mm-hmm. It's really tricky for me to keep up with them. So eventually they're going to outgrow me, and then they're going to hate when they see their name. They got TJ Wilson beside their match. For sure. I hope not.
No, for sure. I agree. So, recently Triple H, retiring, ending his long, storied career. And I know, he's been so hands-on with the company and everything. But, what are your thoughts on Triple H, finally calling it quits?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, kind of a similar situation to me, where it was obviously way later, but it was taken out of his hands. Like he didn't have a say with his heart condition. He was forced upon him, which it's still so new to him. I haven't spoken with him. I haven't seen him, but maybe like if he's having a hard time with it right now, it's something that in a few years he might look back and go, well, in a weird way, it's okay this happened because then the decision's made for you. As I was saying earlier, like I'm at peace with it for, like, and I'm happy. I've seen people not be at peace with these types of things, and it kind of eats at them. And I'm glad that, luckily, I found. I was saying this to my friend. I hate being wrong. I hate being wrong. But I remember thinking I was going to hate being a producer. And something that I was very wrong about, and it's something I'm very happy I was wrong about. But with Triple H, I wrestled him a couple times. Had a couple matches against DX, two tag matches and one match with bragging rights, 7-on-7, and always great experience wrestling him, competing with him. And he's the guy who was behind all my NXT stuff. NXT was his thing. If he didn't want me there, he easily could have said no. That was his vision, and like the stuff with Natty and stuff. Like I didn't come up with that. That was Hunter. Yeah. So I mean, I give him all the credit for that. And what he made NXT and what NXT became. Nobody. When I remember doing the first taping at Full Sail, I wrestled Joe Henning, and nobody thought it was gonna be what it became. No way. And that's a testament to the talent, but that's a big testament to Hunter, to Triple H, and his vision, big time.
I think he's one of the greatest of all time to ever do it and lace a pair of boots. But I think at some point you have to like think about long term, like family and everything. Like it's big, man.
Yeah, and it's very easy to say one more match, one more match. One more match, but then that one more turns into like a really bad injury or something, and you're like, damn, I should have stopped 2 ago. But like you don't know that in the moment, and you always think like you feel good, and you're like, ooh, one more match, and then, and so like I was saying, like it's gonna not feel good right now, but at least, like you said, long-term health and stuff, he knows he's gonna be okay.
Yeah, for sure. But one last question I wanted to ask. So as someone who wants to get in the professional wrestling business, and for others that are watching that want to like start training and everything, what's one piece of advice you'd give to someone who wants to do this? I guess
it's gonna be so cliche, but just know that like that first little bit of training is by far the hardest, and it doesn't get like super easy, but it gets a lot easier, and it becomes more natural. Like wrestling is very unnatural. Falling and taking a bump is very unnatural. Letting somebody wind up, and you hope that they're precise with their punch and it doesn't hit you in the face. But I've had teeth chipped and broken teeth and stuff and smashed noses. It's not natural movement to keep your head out while someone's throwing a punch at it. Like, so you got to train your body to do these unnatural movements and make these unnatural movements become natural. So it's very interesting. It's always going to be hardest at first, and it's so cliche, but like this is my mantra, and it's what literally has led to all my success. Just never giving up. And I know it sounds so cheesy and cliche, but like there were so many times where I was like beat up, banged up. That dungeon mat was so thin, man. It was thin, and I just remember being like, this hurts so much, and I'm the small 15, 16-year-old kid getting thrown around by much bigger guys and these amateur wrestlers that were training. So like they were intense guys, and I learned a lot with those guys. Like we had great chemistry with those guys. But yeah, man, like honestly, I know it sounds so cheesy, but like just don't give up, and just know that like if you love this, I promise you will get better. If you keep going, you will get better. Will you be the best? I can't promise you will be the best. I can't promise you that. But I promise you, if you're like whatever level you're at, if you're at a 0, you keep going, you will become a 1. If you're a 1, you will become like you will get better. That I will guarantee you. If you keep going, you will get better. It's that hump, man. Especially at the beginning, it's rough. It's rough. Like the kids I train, 2 of them I train literally from scratch. So I'm watching them and I know like these bumps hurt, and they're like the one kid I trained, Cam, like he broke his ankle and had to get surgery, and I remember thinking, I wonder if this is like I wonder if this will become a crossroads for him. He didn't miss one workout with me. He trains in my garage with me every day when I'm home, and he didn't miss one, man. He did not miss one, that psycho. And when he got cleared, he was right back in the ring, and he's been right back in the ring ever since. So like I have they're living proof that my mantra is right, of like, again, it says John Cena saying and whatever, but it's like literally don't give up. And like if you give up, once you give up, you know the race is over, but you don't know what the race entails if you're still in the race. You don't know what can happen. If you could be in 10th place, but those other 9 people might all trip and give up. And then you can you can tiptoe your way to the finish line. You don't even have to run anymore. They're all out. You don't know. You never know. So just don't take yourself out the game, and don't give up if you truly love this. But however, I do say, if wrestling isn't for everybody, it really isn't. Like the physical aspect, like you may find like, ooh, I love it, but that's just like a little too intense for me. But you might find a different avenue. Again, like now I'm a producer. I would have never. I've been a producer, and in my role, it's way more fulfilling to me as an in-ring talent. So you don't know what is around the corner.
No, for sure. Well, I hope one day I can come down to, Florida and, train with you and make things happen.
You're definitely welcome to.
Mm-hmm. No, I appreciate that, man.
Yeah,
for sure. But,
Canadian style.
You heard it here first. But, thank you
Just bring that Tim Hortons and we're good.
I will, for sure. So I think Natty was just down in Toronto, and she was.
She brought some ketchup chips and some Tim Hortons and some these like real fruit snacks that I don't have in Florida.
Yeah, no, that's insane. But thank you so much,
No,
Tyson.
bro.
I
Thank you,
appreciate
man.
it.
I'm really happy we got to meet in person.
For sure. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.